Hey guys, today we will be taking a look at how the 2024 presidential election could end in a tie between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. We will be filling out a new election prediction based on new polls from key swing states such as Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. We will get started by filling out the solid states for each candidate, starting for Kamala Harris. Washington, Oregon, California, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, Delaware, and the District of Columbia. Now we will be moving on to the solid states for Donald Trump. Trump will solidly win Wyoming, Utah, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, and Ohio. Trump will also solidly win Iowa. After the solid states, Kamala Harris stands at 162 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 133. We'll now be moving on to the likely states for each candidate, starting off with Kamala Harris. Harris will likely win Colorado and New Mexico. Both of these states were solidly won by Biden in 2020, but have shifted a lot to the right after his poor 4 years of performance. Kamala Harris will also likely win Maine's congressional districts, which Biden solidly won last time. Kamala Harris will also likely win New Jersey, which Biden also solidly won last election as well. Now we will be moving on to the states that Donald Trump will likely win, starting with the state of Texas. Back in 2020, Biden was doing incredible in this state. Many polls even had him winning Texas and leading. But even with those incredible numbers, Biden came nowhere close to winning Texas, as the state has just voted for Republican for so long. And after Biden's poor 4 years of performance and the Democratic Party switching candidates so late into the election, Donald Trump will very likely win the state of Texas and its 40 electoral votes. Trump will also likely win the state of Florida and its 30 electoral votes. In 2016 and 2020, Trump won the state by a convincing margin, and ever since then, Florida has just shifted to the right. Trump will also likely win all of Nebraska besides its 2nd congressional district, which we'll get to later in this video. Trump will also likely win Maine in its electoral vote. Now moving on to the likely states for Kamala Harris. We'll start with the state of New Hampshire. Joe Biden won the state by a convincing margin in 2020, and even though Trump is performing better than he did back then, Kamala Harris should still very likely win this state. Same with the state of Virginia. Joe Biden again won the state of Virginia by double digits the last election, and even though Trump is performing better, Kamala Harris will be able to keep up some of these states that have just been voting Democrat for the past few decades. Harris will also solidly win Hawaii in its 4 electoral votes. Now we'll be moving on to the lean states for each candidate. These are states that are tilted towards a specific party, but could possibly vote either way in the election, starting with the state of Nevada. Nevada is lean towards Donald Trump. When you take a look at the 2020 election in Nevada here, you can see that Joe Biden won the state. But unlike other states, Nevada actually shifted right compared to 2016 when Clinton won the state. And after a poor 4 years of performance from President Biden, Trump should very much so win Nevada. Moving on to the state of North Carolina. This state will also be lean towards Donald Trump, as in 2020, with Biden's good performance across the nation, North Carolina remained red, and it will stay red this time with Kamala Harris on the ticket, and so will the state of Georgia. In 2020, Joe Biden managed to flip the state of Georgia for the first time in many years. But Kamala Harris is nowhere near where Joe Biden was 4 years ago with a pandemic in the country and many other issues with the Trump campaign. So Georgia will be leaning towards Donald Trump. And now moving on to the state of Arizona. This state is one of the most important states in this election, and both Harris and Trump have been spending a tremendous amount of time, effort, and money in this state. Taking a look at the polls in Arizona, we are dead even. This is probably the most competitive state poll-wise, as these polls have just been so close. One thing we do know about Donald Trump, though, is that the polls tend to underestimate him and how he performs. And taking a look down at the polls below, you see both candidates leading in some polls. But just because the polls tend to underestimate Trump and how Arizona has shifted to the right, I will be giving Arizona to Donald Trump. And now, Donald Trump stands at 268 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 215 electoral votes as we get into the final 4 states and Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. Nebraska's 2nd congressional district will be going to Donald Trump by a very, very, very slight margin. Out of all of the districts in Nebraska, the 2nd congressional district is the only one Democrats realistically have a chance at winning. And just because of how strong Trump has been performing in these central states, I will be giving Nebraska's 2nd congressional district to Donald Trump by a very slight margin. And now we are down to the final 4 states of this election. Donald Trump stands at 269 electoral votes, just one away from taking the presidency, to Kamala Harris's 225 electoral votes. Kamala Harris needs to win all 4 of these remaining states if she wants a chance to become the next president of the United States of America. Starting with the state of Minnesota, Tim Walz's home state. Kamala Harris will take the state of Minnesota. As Tim Walz's home state, Kamala Harris does have the edge here, and a huge reason Kamala Harris picked Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate was because of her desperate need to attract voters in these mid-eastern states. Moving on to the state of Michigan. Out of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, Joe Biden won Michigan by the biggest margin of the 3 swing states in 2020. Taking a look in Michigan, Harris leads in the polls by 2.8%. And you can see how she's been getting better and better as she gets more time to campaign. When you scroll down to the polls, you'll see that Harris leads in almost every single one of the polls below, besides for 2 of them. And when you take a look at the bottom, Harris leads by 11 and 12 in 2 of the polls. And the fact that Michigan has been pretty consistently Democratic, I'm going to have to give Michigan to Kamala Harris. With Michigan, Kamala Harris now stands at 240 electoral votes. If she wants to tie the presidency, then she has to win the remaining 2 states, Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Taking a look at Wisconsin, Kamala Harris leads by 2.3%. Back in 2020, Joe Biden did win Wisconsin and rebuild the blue wall of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And as Kamala Harris gets more time to campaign and gather herself together, she will continue to improve in these 3 states. And as we take a look at the polls below, almost every single poll, again, has Kamala Harris leading. You do have to take it with a grain of salt, considering the polls always underestimate Trump, but just the consistency and the improvement in Kamala Harris's campaign has me giving Wisconsin to Kamala Harris. And now we are down to the final state of the 2024 presidential election. Donald Trump stands at 269 electoral votes, one away from winning the presidency, to Kamala Harris's 250 electoral votes. If she picks up Pennsylvania, she will tie the election, and the House of Representatives will decide the next president of the United States of America. In 2020, Joe Biden won Pennsylvania by 1.2%. And out of all of these three states, Pennsylvania is the most Republican of them all. Taking a look at the polls, Harris leads by 1.1% in Pennsylvania. Out of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, this is the smallest lead of them all. But as Kamala Harris gets more time to gather her campaign together and start visiting and gathering supporters in these key battleground states, I believe she will gain a huge amount of supporters just because of the many problems with Donald Trump and his campaign, such as the January 6th incident 4 years ago and his 34 convicted felonies, as well as being one of few presidents in American history that have been impeached. I believe these problems will give Harris the slight edge in these key battleground states. As we take a look at the polls below, we see a pretty even battle between Harris and Trump, with Harris leading in some polls and Trump leading in some polls, with two even polls as well. But as I mentioned earlier, as Harris picks up supporters at a faster rate and Trump faces many of these problems he created 4 years ago after claiming there was voter fraud when he lost the 2020 presidential election, these combinations of issues and other problems for the Trump campaign, I believe, will give Harris the slight edge in Pennsylvania. So I will be giving Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral votes to Kamala Harris. And this means the 2024 presidential election has ended in a tie, and the House of Representatives will decide the next president of the United States of America. Well, according to the 12th Amendment in the Constitution, if there's a tie between the two candidates in the Electoral College, then the House of Representatives will decide the next president of the United States. The way this process works is that each state gets one delegation, and a candidate needs to receive the majority of 26 delegation votes to be elected the next president of the United States. Representatives of each state will vote on who they choose as the president. States will cast their delegation to Congress, where a winner will be decided. Taking a look at the split in the House of Representatives between the Democrats and the Republicans, we see that the Republicans hold a majority of the states in the United States, which means that Donald Trump has been re-elected President of the United States, making him the second president in history to lose a re-election bid, run again, and win again 4 years later. At 78 years of age, Donald Trump will serve another 4 years in the Oval Office, making him the oldest president in American history, tying with Joe Biden at 82 years of age at the end of their term. Please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more what-ifs and more content on political elections. Thank you for watching.